wish. It's all about healing today, because
Yeah.
what does it mean to actually see the vision of the self or talking to each other in the acute way? Well, it's searching for unity again when the state of mind is actually through the ritual applications is causing first the division. And at the very beginning, I would like to say that the difference between the uh, mystical path of Rabbi Abulafia of hyperactivation of the mind and putting oneself on the edge differs from the pathological states that are so similar in the described in the modern psychiatry. Is that patients that are suffering from the spontaneous HEAUTOSCOPY or acute endophasia, like externalized, that they speak to each other and they cannot control it, is that exactly that you cannot control it. And the path of a mystic is that it's similar by the epiphenomenon, but it's not by the intention and by the strength of the will. And this is actually the gist, putting yourself on the limit, putting on the edge, but not falling to the abyss of
Yeah.
losing mind. And
Yeah.
but at this edge, at this border, there are some actually insights that are otherwise not accessible. And the bravery, the just enormous stamina and long-term planning of Rabbi Abulafia and focusing on that it has to be precisely performed in order to maybe not guarantee the success, but just facilitate the possibility to that the success will be with the success, the unity within oneself, I would say, or but in a theological terms, also unity within with Hashem. It's something, and therefore also the self-healing and healing even further, because then inspiring others and so forth and so on and so forth. It all, it makes this kind of circle, hermeneutical circle for me, because it's if we say that all the religions stemming from the proto-shamanism or shamanism, which is the conviction of most of the ethnologists of anthropologists of religion, and also most of the scholars of studies of religion, and I totally subscribe under this. We will see that in Abulafian terms, it's just Jewish shamanism, I would say, and Jewish cognitive trance in a very special mode. And therefore, as I promised also in our earlier session, I hinted at the work of Corinne Sombrun. I would like to, at the end, present a little bit of her, because this is actually one of the cognitive trance, auto-induced cognitive trance techniques that she is proposing that is so much, it's not Jewish, it's not Abulafian, but it's very, very similar. It's taken out of the scope of some denomination and also in a current sense of the current religion that we have in our contemporary world, which is a science. She is really putting it a lot of stress to that with the cooperation of great colleagues, great scholars in the field to make the movement flourish. And her tool is very amazing also. It's auditory. It's just a sound, like the Rav Abulafia, also pronouncing the sound, but in her case, it's a sound wave that she developed. Okay, I'm a little bit anticipating those things, so
Okay.
if it's fine, I will proceed, Valerie. Okay, or
Sure. Sure.
but
Absolutely.
at any time is very hours session, so let's just speak as we wish anytime and have a dialogue. So
Okay.
the topics today, I will just hint at some of them because depending on where we will go, on which we'll be focusing more. But again, the starting point would be this description of already mentioned vision of Yahoel in Sefer Haot, angel Yahoel, which is exactly also in Temuric terms in the changing of the orders of the letters. It's Eliyahu. Uh, and we remember that this is gematria of 52, which is like dual gematria twice as gematria of Hashem, of the name tetragram of the tetragram, and Rav Ulafia or his alter ego Zechariahu, which is Abraham is the same as Zechariahu, it's 248, is having this vision in the mirror, which is all, as we remember, all the manuscripts are corroborating it, that this is not mar'eh, it's mar'ah, and mar'ah as a vision can be most of the in the contextual terms also should be, and most of the times should be translated as a mirror, as a mirroring vision. Therefore, we have all the good arguments, textual arguments, and also arguments from the context and from all of the knowledge about the technique, that we are speaking here about vision of the self, but let's say this angelic self of Zechariahu Abraham or Abulafia, just put it bluntly. At the same time, what is happening there within this hautoscopy, the vision of the self, and then the fluctuation of the subjectivity is happening. Endophasia is occurring. So endophasia with the duality of the subjects. And as I will show in soon, just endophasia is something, according to the scholars of the linguistics and the developmental linguistics, the psychology of language, psychology of language development within the children. Endophasia is something that we just have as a species, is a peculiarity of mankind. And it can be defined that in order to know that we ask ourselves what are we thinking about, we are actually having a dialogue, permanent dialogue within ourselves. And you can make a test, everyone can make a test that endophasia is happening. It's actually very, very nice test, because we are not aware about this process, but it's happening all the time. That we are actually speaking in our thoughts, we are asking our thoughts with the language. And in non-acute situations, it's just perfectly normal state of mind that we are having this dialogue. There is an interlocutor inside of us. But the cases of the acute endophagia
Sorry, Arya. The precondition is that we have already acquired language.
Yes. We as a we don't exist without language. Yes. And the language, development of the language, well, Lev Vygotsky, Piaget, and others, precursors and also current scholars, they say it's just our, even quoting Jacques Lacan's theory of mirror stage, that the mirror stage is actually the beginning of the language, and it's all the duality that causes that the language appears. And we also know what happens to the children that are not exposed to the culture, where it doesn't develop. It's a very strange situation, and it's still, as far as there are plenty of hypotheses, but it is not known why the children who were, for example, lost in the jungles, and they were upbrought by monkeys or wolves, like so-called wolf children, when they are after some threshold of year 7 and 8 or even earlier, they are reintroduced to the society of the humans. They do not develop language, and paradoxically, there are many hypotheses why, because of the social stress, because of the lack of adaptation, missing of their horde. They are animals. It cannot be explained, because even if the stress is being diminished, the children are dying quite early. As far as I remember, the longest living this kind of wild child without acquiring the language development, there were some stages without acculturation missing. The child died around 15. And there is a hypothesis that we have to be language beings as a humans, otherwise we cannot exist. It's a very compelling hypothesis. And the point is that in order to acquire language, you have to have a dialogue inside of you. And endophagia is a perfect normal state of normal thinking all the time. However, acute endophagia, it would be like that there is, first of all, expressed outside. And it is actually quite... I don't know if you've seen any kind of report with the video about acute endophagia. It's really compelling, because the person speaks very much, the patient, speaks very much in a very, very convincing way. I'm not talking about changing the voice or something, which is a rather application of schizophrenia or any kind of split of personality split disorder, but just the dialogue is there with the same voice, but it is a dialogue, but it is externalized, and there is no control over that. And as we mentioned, there is a difference between this and the state of mind of of a mystic that draws his mind towards by some specific algorithm of the ritual stages.
Okay.
So Yeah, I will just show you a couple of show us, a couple of things of the that are actually a couple of definitions of thinking that actually are bringing us to this topic. I would like to also a little bit give a room to Rambam and to claim that actually Rav Abulafia had a lot of theoretical background into endophagia from the Moreh Nevuchim, and this is also my claim, and not only my claim, it's just some hints are about it in Moshe Idel and also Shahar Arzi. Their book is just great book, this Neurocognitive Approach to Mystical Experiences. I think it's totally undervalued book. I think this is the best book actually that is in the field of Kabbalah because it gives the room, the bridge to really speak about it as a science, which is so important. Not to have it as in a way of thinking that this is just a historical artifact. This is interesting to talk about, like something that I'm so much outraged whenever I think about this quote when Gershom Scholem went to the JTS in America. Allegedly, Professor Shaul Lieberman was very skeptical about Scholem speaking about Kabbalah, but he said Kabbalah is a nonsense, or Jewish mysticism is a nonsense. However, history of the Jewish mysticism as a history of nonsense, this is a scholarship. So, this is outrageous because it's just really not letting to build a bridge about those topics and putting them in this, in this kind of place. Okay, this is the past, or this is something like non-existence, or this is the mumbo jumbo. Anyway, but we are learning the history of mumbo jumbo.
Yeah,
It's very wrong. Yeah.
Jeff presented us in another context pieces of the discussion between Lieberman and Scholem. It was
Yeah.
very, very interesting. Yeah, because the dialogue was quite intense and
Yeah.
very motivated from both sides. But yeah, I really totally, I am in the context of what you mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very grateful, that Zev is doing great stuff for that, and I'm just quoting it, and my whole approach to the so Gershom Scholem is very complicated. I just admire him about the great things he's done, but because I am very much Goldbergian, into Oscar Goldberg legacy that was forgotten because of the approach of the Gershom Scholem. I am also having a little bit negative opinions about Scholem, but he is passed away, and I am depending on his also scholarship. I will not judge him as a person. I judge only, let's say, some aspects of his approach. But definitely we are here and also in our meeting standing on the position that when I speak about Rav Abulafia and he is talking to me about the techniques and he is talking, it will connect you to the intellectus agens, into the sechel hapoel, into the active intellect. I myself, if I have a problem understanding what does it mean, this means that I have a problem, not Rav Abulafia. I really trust that Abulafia is speaking about the real, true science scholarship, and that's it. Because there is a gap of 700 years, and we are totally different cultural beings. We can build this bridge, but I have to retranslate what he meant into my current language, and my current language is science. The meta religion is science. Of course, as a Jew, I also try to connect the dots here and there, but I try to really translate it to this, and that's why I think that Shahar Arts and Moshe Idel, they made the enormous, very courageous effort to bring it forth, because this is actually the path that should be more and more developed. Otherwise, in textology, reading about those topics in as a theological artifacts, it has sense, but it's not having ultimate sense in my opinion. It will always put us into some sort of very square positions, very square areas, and it will not give us the possibility to make a unified picture. And we try here to make a unified picture. So some of those Rambam theories I will also bring. About David HaKohen, I mentioned here Hanazir, called Hanevuah. This is a 20th century student actually of Rav Kook, the religious Zionist, very beautiful theologies of the 20th century. And David HaKohen Hanazir was, again, we are just a little with the digression upon digressions here. as far as I remember, he was Professor Scholem was exposed to Hanazir, and there was a chance that they could have been learning together. Maybe I'm mixing up some things, but I think they kind of met there in Israel. What is important about Rav David HaKohen is that he was stressing so much that in his book Voice of Prophecy, this is exactly the book, the copy I have, called Nevuah. He's stressing that everything what is happening in the Judaism, what is important, is about hearing and inner speech, dibur hapnimi, which is exactly a Hebrew classical term for endophasia. And endophagia as a place where a prophecy can happen. That's why he calls it Kol HaNevuah. And he's so much into the Abulafian realms. And as far as I talked about it with Moshe, I remember that Moshe stressed that yes, Hanazir was apparently exposed to Abulafia, but it was not in the direct sense, but they were just probably taking from the same source. And again, I think also the fact that in Rambam More Nevuchim we have so much about Dibur Hapnimi, about inner speech, and so much in the Torah you can find things about hints at and verses hinting at the inner speech, and also in not in, only in Torah, in Kol Tanakh. And in Tanakh, there's plenty of psalms and fragments of psalms are being used in the daily ritual in Sidurim, and I delineated those things in the in my work on Sefer Haot. It can all say that this specific methodology within the Hebraism and Judaism that actually brought both Rambam, Abulafia, and Nazir to the conclusions that it's all about hearing and inner speech, and in case of Rav Abulafia also techniques to develop these acute states, because in acute states the language is also acute and it's on a verge, as we said. I just delineate more or less things that some of them we will not talk about today, but I am aware. Then in the neurocognitive themes, I have one quote from a brilliant book of Oliver Sacks, another great Jew. He passed away several years ago, and the book is called Hallucinations. He has plenty of other books. He was a he was a psychiatrist. He was also a therapist, and he was just having very open mind to the notion of different states of mind without labeling them. He was also a child of the of the 60s, 70s, so he was also not ashamed to share about his psychedelic experiences, but it was all in the rigor of the science, and a lot of great read actually you're gonna find by Oliver Sacks. And plenty of those materials can be reapplied to the scholarship of Kabbalah, especially of Rav Abulafia, because it's just showing the potentiality of where HEAUTOSCOPY and aphasia can be actually shown with similarities of the phenomenon towards Rav Abulafia, for example. So I am quoting one of his or two of his patients or two of the relations in synopsis to the HEAUTOSCOPY vision of Yahuel. And of course, the book that I actually send you the copy for private usage, Kabbalah Neurocognitive Approach to Mystical Experiences. This is actually, there are plenty of materials there, and this is actually showing also a lot of about architecture of the brain as a hardware and towards the mind as a software. How does it work actually with the endophasia and HEAUTOSCOPY? But this is not exactly the topic for today. And I really would like to speak about Corinne, as I mentioned. She is I met her. I know what she's doing. I tested it also, and this auto-induced cognitive trance techniques. That's my dream, to organize such a laboratory experiment on Abulafian techniques together with her sound wave, because it's just it would be really great to see the results. Okay, let's move forward to the concrete stuff. So, and Valerie, anytime you want to step on something more and that we explore more, it's fine. You know, we can also, as I said many times about HEAUTOSCOPY and aphasia, we could have easily 8 or more sessions. That's why we are having here what we want.
Yeah, I'm following. I'm following. Just I will tell when needed. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So the Sefer Haot already we discussed, and we've seen the manuscripts and other things, and it was peer meeting through all the sessions. It has this beautiful statement which I would like to read in English. It's actually my translation. Finally, some extras, of course, I translated, but yeah, this course is really motivating me to do the translation of Sefer Haot. Okay, to English. Uh, I wish to speak to call the name Elohai, which means my God, but in a sense of Elohim, to call the name Elohai for him to support me. But the possibility of speech abandoned my spirit. And it happened in this moment when the man saw how greatly terrified I am, the man already seen in the vision, that he opened his mouth and spoke to me. Then he opened my mouth and I answered to his word. What I was saying might came back to me and changed me into a new man, and thanks to this, I open my eyes. For me, this is like exactly in a one or two sentences showing the dynamics of what's happening. There is a vision. We know that Rabbi Abraham has a closed eyes, and that he opens his eyes and the vision is still there, which is already a next level. It's something of a big time, and he cannot speak. So there is aphasia, and then there is also a lot of fear, a lot of trembling, and the man already in the hautoscopy is taking over the control. Is actually open his mouth and the mouth of the another subject, and then giving also the power back to speak. So it's not like possessive state. This is what Moshe Idel is stressing so much. It's not voodoo techniques, the possessive state. Whatever it is, cognitive trance is different from the trance that is possessive trance. What actually we don't like so much here, I mean, people who are into the cognitive trance or interested in Rav Abulafia or even evaluating it from the Jewish perspective, is that losing the agency is a little bit problematic, because we know the stories about the Bukim, we know the stories about possessive states, and possessive states, if there is no control, maybe they can stay, maybe they can harm. This is also the religious approach. Uh, I would like to bring here maybe some voodoo specialists or Santeria to correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds for me always suspicious if there is any kind of losing of consciousness. However, not in the case of here. There may be temporary stupors, temporary aphasias, temporary trembling because of fear, but not the case that is permanent. And that's the whole beauty about it, that there is a dialogue possible. As we remember later, there's this whole chain of prophecies happening after this statement in Sefer Haot. So actually, it has a prolific creational.
Perhaps one of the features of voodoo is that it takes place in a, let's say, more or less collective context. In the set.
That's also another context. Well, it's parashamanic, definitely. There is something of, but shaman is never losing control in the sense of not knowing where he is. It looks like outside, and this is the difference. As far as I know, I haven't been witnessing any voodoo or Santeria rituals. Don't want to evaluate it in any way. Just want to say that as far as I read about it, there is this losing of the deliberate letting of the losing of the agency in order to be a instrument, passive instrument to the potential spirits that enter and they speak. This is the difference between shamanism and this is the difference. Like shamanism, when I say it, I define it by the Siberian or Amazonian shamanism, the exemplary one, or Australian, the Aranda tribe, for example, what Emil Durkheim was just giving us beautiful exposure to, or Siberian, or any kind of tribes from the Amazonia. There are plenty of those ethnological researches and relations about it. There is never a losage of the agency, and the same is with the Rav Abulafia, and here it's also being shown. Yeah. So with the Rambam context, we in the past sessions we didn't speak so much about about this context of theoretical context. So in Rambam, there is this notion of active intellect. This is the highest, what he calls sechel hapoel, the highest realm, highest intelligence to which we can attach. And for Rabbi Abulafia, and not only for him, active intellect is synonymous to Metatron, which is synonymous to Yahuel. And this is almost like Hashem, but it's like, I would say, why he's almost, because he's the one who is speaking with the creation. And of course, there are plenty of discourses, theological discourses, why, when we accentuate the monotheism, there is an agent that is as if.
Can you develop a little bit more in this almost?
It's almost, because Metatron and Yahuel is being called in the tradition, it's ancient tradition, it's a Heichalot tradition, it's also from the times of the Torah, how is it treated by the Jewish tradition. The angel that is called the small God or small Hashem, and his name, in his name there is the name of his master. And there is this whole story about four rabbis that entered the Pardes, like the heavenly sphere. In a short, I'm really making abridgment here. And one of them just lost his faith, because he distinguished that there are two powers out there up. So he said, I saw Hashem, and I saw also angel of the face, which is called also later in the philosophy Sechel Hapoel by Rambam, and is also called Metatron or Yahuel in a short. So he saw two agencies. And the point is, you shouldn't see two agencies, because we are talking a monotheism here. So I would say almost means that I like to call agent Metatron as a Hashem himself in the interface towards the creation. So it appears to us as a separate being, because otherwise we cannot grasp it. But you cannot believe it that this is ontologically like this, like this. And therefore, although it appears to us as a separate being, it's the best interface, so to speak, of Hashem towards a human being. And that I would explain this almost. And in Rambam, it's he's talking about it in a way that is so convincing, actually, that Rambam really knows what he's talking about, also from this experience. And that's why there was a among so many Kabbalists, the conviction that Rambam was really a great Kabbalist, although historically, as we ascribe him, he was not. But it's like someone denies that he's a Kabbalist and saying I'm a philosopher, or it doesn't show that he's a Kabbalist. Well, then therefore he has to be a true Kabbalist, because he's not showing it. So that's the argumentations of those who were in the history of the Jewish history of the self ascribing the person to the particular trend. They were thinking of Rambam as the great Kabbalist. Well, Rabbi Abulafia was definitely also thinking of him as the great Kabbalist, although he called him the teacher, and also the one who guides, because the term more. So Moreh Nevuchim, the one who guides the perplexed ones, those who are not sure, and therefore Rabbi Abulafia esteemed so much him. So the notion of inner speech is appearing many times in Rambam. So I am asking here some questions. Is it also a triggering from this blueprint book? The Moreh Nevuchim, Abulafia studied it very early, and did it already nourish him kind of from one side, and he just connected the dots from the practical aspects when he developed the practice, or build up upon already inherited practice stemming from Sefer Yetzirah, with all the letter permutations, Chochmot Hatzeruf, in short, what we spoke about. That he was already a little bit inclined towards inner speech by the theoretical stressings from Rambam. So this a little bit I would like to skip, maybe. I'm talking him about bicameral mind theory of James. Do you know about actually this kind of bicameral mind theory by James?
No, I haven't heard. Although I have read it before the slide, more or less I have acquired a little bit of perception.
Uh-huh.
But
yes, sorry.
Is bicameral having to do with recent approaches to the brain, separation between two parts of the brain, different functions, or something like that?
A little bit, yes. Yeah. The idea is that James had this theory that people in ancient times, they saw gods, really. The gods were externalized, and they spoke with them as external beings. They saw it in the nature. They were much more prone to see visions. Like, and according to James, it happens some sort of shift in the mind, maybe by different acculturations, maybe there are some theories that are following the theory of James seriously, and they say, okay, yeah, people were just deprived of psychedelics, for example, or some rituals that were actually causing this constant visionary states, and therefore everything was internalized. So for us, what was happening for the ancients seems to be like internal visionary state, and we
Yeah,
are very skeptical of having the objective feeling towards that. However, to those on whom we are basing our visions, because we inherited from them the literature or the passages that are building our own myths in the sense of
yeah,
reality,
yeah, yeah. I
they
understand.
were real. They were real. Like passage
Yeah,
from the sea of no, and it's kind of idea that I had here to think about that maybe whole notion of endophasia is also stemming from and can be grasped from this perspective.
yeah, I
Uh,
understand. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
yeah. So also I was a little bit restraining here myself if thinking about the interpretive reductionist trap when we are thinking about neurocognitive research. I'm just repeating the some sort of skepticism of self-skepticism of Moshe Idel and Shahar Arzi when they spoke. Well, can we really compare the modern neurocognitive science and psychiatry and pathological cases to the, let's say, Moreh Nevuchim of Rambam and Abulafian results of Abulafian techniques? Well, if we were very secure and we are self-aware of our self-skepticism, I think there is no risk that we will just do too much inclinations towards new age. Everything is all, and all these kind of statements that do not bring anything crucial. And here I would like to stay a little bit because there are those three definitions, and especially my beautiful my beloved one, because it's from my also my personal teacher, it's teacher of my Hebrew teacher, my teacher in Krakow, Tomasz Sikora.
Mhm.
He also made a doctorate about the cognitive aspect of hallucinations and how it also was so much important within the processes of symbolization and religion. And the only problem with this book that he wrote, it was his doctorate, is that it's in Polish. And
Mhm.
he only translated or made an excerpt of one short passage of this book, and he never thought about updating the book. He just didn't have further goal and update the book and release it in English. So the the impact of this book is very narrow. It's only narrow to the
Mhm.
Polish literature, and therefore I can be a little bit bridge to show how much it's actually a waste of such a scholarship, and people should actually publish things in the lingua franca of the current world, which is English. And there are some reasons for not doing this, but I am also a self-victimized victim, let's say, of this, because I also published my PhD in Hebrew and Polish, and now I am paying the price for that because if it would be completely in English, not in articles, well, it might have also some conversant impact that we could easily refer to.
If you
What was
if you allow me to say so,
Yeah.
this paragraph reminded me of my readings of about Leibniz, Gottfried
Uh-huh.
Leibniz, because in the disputes between Leibniz and Descartes,
Mm-hmm.
Leibniz was much more recognizing Descartes' approaches in many aspects of the science and mathematics, but at the same time, he was fascinated about Spinoza's ability to say certain monism, and the infinite substances of Leibniz uh, brought me a kind of connection with this dialogue between sender and receiver, because Leibniz speaks about the small perceptions. I mean, the infinite substances are interconnected everywhere, and we are connected to uh, unlimited effects of coming to us of other substances. This interconnection is universal, and there's not full awareness on that. And it's an intent of Leibniz to reconstruct the connection between thinking and body in a more universal way, mathematical way. You know, he was a thinker of the infinite. And when we think about unconsciousness or not awareness, I mean, this is something that this sentence brought to my mind.
The middle one, yes, or
The
does he
middle
have?
one, yeah, because at the
Yeah.
end is between communication between multiple, various, conjugated subsystems of ourselves, and those subsystems are connected to other subsystems outside of us, and
Yes.
not just in a scientific modern because of telepathy or interwave communication. No, it's a much more generic perception of the concept of the substances. And it's very inspiring.
It's a very interesting input, actually. We never, when we spoke, and we discussed it during several classes years ago, but definitely it would be something of a contextual enrichment, but we didn't go this way. But if I have ever a chance to pass it to him, I will pass it and I will quote you and give the report about your insight. Well, what he also mentioned here about this conjugated subsystems is that because we have already this inner interlocutor and the basic dynamics with the other is 1 plus 1, but actually it's not 1 plus 1. Right now, for example, just to make it simple, we are talking right now, but there is you for yourself and you in the dialogue with me, and also some interpretative, already third one. So there is a permutation of three agencies happening, and the communication is already complicated. Add another person, and the trialogue is already making it like 27 possible chains
Yeah,
of interactions.
absolutely.
And as you already mentioned a little bit, but just off topically, when there is a collective ritual, we spoke about the voodoo, but any
Mm.
kind of collective ritual,
Yeah,
people are saying collective rituals are amazingly working because they create some sort of a field. We don't know what it
yeah,
is, but we know
exactly.
the effects that people are, and the psychology of the masses, psychology of the
Yeah.
bigger groups is just
Mhm.
amazing. And actually, the book by Shikora is mainly about exactly analyzing the communication in the big groups.
Yeah.
Well, for many reasons. The shamanic model is about one identity entering into specific cognitive trance state and working with the powers of the tribe, of the collective that is around, supporting him, but also bringing some values of insights to each of them. He's like
Yeah.
representative of the all in unified, but the others are supporting him energetically, whatever that means. And but it works.
Yeah.
The same is with prophet in the Jewish tradition. He's also stemming from the people and working for the people. He's not alienating himself. He's not some sort of maid in the tower and he wants to have control over the people. This is the model of the Bil'am, for example, the prophet of the Midian, that he's waging war with Israel during the passage towards land of Israel that is described in the Bamidbar, in the book of the Numbers in the Torah. He is exactly this kind of mage because Bilaam, it means without people. He doesn't need it. He's very powerful, but his own energies, but he's not working with the people. However, the Hebrew prophets are working with the people and are connected to this. So yeah, this and here going back to the endophagia, this middle definition is exactly what I a little bit hinted at earlier. That if a man wishes to know what he thinks, he needs to utter it to himself. You need to say it in a way. It's not even stated. The inner speech are not being normally spoken outside, but the speech is there. It's not the speech that is phonetic. It's a speech that is inside. And the same is also with the Oliver Sacks. The ceaseless stream of generation of generative process probably would be better translation of meaning that constitutes the individual mind. Well, as we know, in different techniques, we can actually stop or slow down this stream or a little bit mend or put under control. However, what Abulafia does, he's actually doing something else. He's speeding it up, intensifying in order to overburn this. And also, he makes with the language this kind of exactly this as we say it in Hebrew, kishkush. He's just cutting everything, putting into the digits, mixing it up, but in a little bit algorithmic manner, and then therefore the language itself is burning about its own mother. Abulafia is removing the semantic aspect of the speech, leaving still the speech working with the structure, syntax, intensity, and so on and so forth, and having some impact. So this is another method. This is not yoga method of silencing the the chain. And I also think, that we are still speaking about different spectral modes of consciousness. Yes. I think there is a spectrum that we are usually using in a, let's say, contemporary world, in a so-called normal communication, but we are also adapted to this. And then let us change a little bit one factor of attention here and there, and we enter into the different spectrum. So whenever someone asks me what is true path, the yoga or Rav Abulafia, which is a very new ageist question, I say both, because this is a part of the spectrum. Also cognitive trance or even ecstatic trance, which is a little bit different behaviorally speaking, uh, or even possessive states are also another spectral uh, occurrences in the consciousness. And the spectrum is as vast as we can explore it. And maybe there are very extreme states of consciousnesses that we cannot just observe and we don't know in acculturation because we are limited by our body and how our mind and on the brain functions, etc. But definitely it's not that yoga is explaining everything or samadhi state is explaining everything or Rabulafia is explaining everything. I believe that they are just different hues on the spectrum. And because they are intensified and they are very, very precise with the methodology towards the goal, therefore they appear as a ultimate. But they are not ultimate in a spectrum sense. They are just giving one aspect of getting to the truth. Which,
Absolutely.
if I would imagine what would be the truth, it would be to encompass at the same time, simultaneously, all the possible states of consciousnesses that are at the potentiality given to a human mind. We have to speak about human mind. We don't know of anything else. Once there is going to be different, then we can speak about it. But this seems to be still a climax. Soon
What
the
you did
AI.
say, what you
Yes.
did say, what you did say is very Leibnizian as well, because all those possible perspectives and the multiplication of
Yeah,
perspectives on
yeah,
the
yeah,
spectrum. This is
yeah, yeah.
absolutely Leibnizian because you know
Uh,
the approach to God's mind for him
mhm.
was described as this asymptotic perspective because
Yeah.
and this asymptotic perspective influenced even Immanuel Kant who thought that Kabbalah was absolutely disgusting. But in Leibnizian terms, Immanuel Kant is more fond of Kabbalah than he thought.
Yeah, because he is a true researcher. Everyone of those great minds ends up
Yeah.
into being, from our perspective, a little bit here and there Kabbalistic. Of course, I'm saying it with all the responsibility of not making it sounding that I am not controlling what I'm saying. I'm just saying that, in my opinion, the true researcher of the language, mind, is having to is bound to find the similarities even with the realms of thought that he despises. So he thinks that they are blurring the topic. But at some point, if he is really consequent, he will get to this similar conclusions like the other came through different acculturation, through different methods. But then again, I'm not saying that everything is unifying or has to unify exactly in the same stage or in the same state of consciousnesses,
Yeah.
uh, because it doesn't have to be. The spectrum is wide enough to have place for other. What I'm just trying to hypothesize, spontaneously inspired by, but also by your comments, is that if I would imagine what does it mean to have a divine consciousness, I would say it's activating all of the potentialities within the spectrum of consciousness that is in potential, as said, given to a human mind, which that's I just can imagine the view, but I can imagine how would that be. Yeah, we are still talking. Let's go back to the mode of what is the endophasia and what is the hautoscopy and seeing the other, the whole question of doppelganger. I had a little bit excursion here towards one of the actually interesting movies. I am very avid reader of the high climbing stories. I never high climbed more than 3,000 meters, unfortunately, but I like to walk in mountains. I like the feeling in the mountains, but I read a lot about Himalayas. So there is this notion about the voice that is externalized in the acute situations, also not based by, not triggered by any techniques, but by the harshness of the conditions, which is, of course, very shamanic in the sense that deprivations, sleep deprivations, not eating, fasting, anything that actually disturbs the homeostasis of the let's say relaxed or cozy states of our body and mind, any kind of disruption in the hormonal stage or hormonal balance, or even the psychedelics application, it's all having very similar effects. So climbing high altitude or being exposed to the cold or being in a high adrenaline level survival can cause situations like Oliver Sacks is actually bringing when he says the voice tells me exactly what to do, and I agree with him. Whereas the other entity in me jumped frankly from the one idea to another. As long as I obey the voice, I'm okay. And the story is that he actually survived. I don't know if you know the movie also or the book. The guy really survived like 1 week crawling because he had broken leg and he was thought to be dead by his partner. But he managed to crawl and he just survived and he said later in the reports that the voice had said, do this, do that, take one more step here, put your hand here. When he was algorithmically approaching, it was fine. When the other one was panicking, the other voice, it was not fine. So he survived actually, and this was acute endophagia stemming from the external, very stressful situations. Um, this is also another interesting thing when we compare those kind of extremely uh, acute states with the endophagia theorizes or already quoting the Torah when we are not, if we assume that we are talking about the religious artifacts of a persons or the states of mind described in the Torah that are real in a sense in the framework of this religious report. And then we really have to see that in Torah there are plenty of places that are hinting at endophagia. One of these is, for example, the meeting of face to face, described as face to face, whereas it's written in the Torah, it's known that the face of the Hashem, the God, Yud-Ke Vav-Ke, tetragram, is not being shown. So, whose face is actually being visible if there is only one? And why there are two voices if there is only one face, and there are two entities. One face, that of Moses, but there are also two voices. The same is, I didn't quote it here, but there is this analysis of Rashi about the statement that Shekhinah, the God's presence, was speaking from Migrono, Midaber Migrono. It is very confusing, very not confusing, but very strange in the context Hebrew grammatical form, as if there is speaking to itself, because normally you would say ledaber, ani medaber, I'm speaking to speak, but midaber means like it will be hitbal, which is a reflexive form, which would mean that, I'm sorry, from the, I just want to sneeze and I cannot. From the perspective of the recipient, there is actually an inner speech in the, and it's called in the throat of the of Moshe. And how is it explained by Rashi, the commentator? He says the voice of Hashem was entering the Moshe, and through his voice was just interface. His own Moshe voice was interface, but actually the content was the voice of God speaking through, like speaking itself from his throat. And when he was speaking to um, the congregation of Israel, and this is a very beautiful. Also, it has very actually very strong theological consequences that Moshe was treated as a pure vessel and pure prophet, and he didn't add anything human to the passing of the from above, as it is metaphorized from above, from the much more intense and divine level, which is very interesting. That it is already spotted in the, not only in the commentary, but is also spotted in the language of the Torah. I also like very much the quote in the Siddur that I didn't bring it here. That there is the statement about opening the mouth. That you have to open your mouth and Hashem will fill it. It says Harchef picha ve'amalechu. That please open your. The Hashem is pleading, open your mouth, but I will fill them. I will enter into you, and I will speak through them. Which also Moshe Idel brings in his book when he speaks about enthusiasm. And he opened my mind. I was using this word enthusiasm, and I knew that it was stemming from Greek enthousiasmos, but I never connected the dots that enthousiasmos means to be in the God's mouth. This is exactly what does mean to be enthusiastic. So it means that when you are powerful and energetical, you want to do things, it means that you are already devoured by divinity. You are actually food of God, and God is because you are giving yourself as an instrument. God is actually speaking through you through your actions. Therefore, you feel enthusiastic, which is reverse to the depressive mode, when you are actually so full of the mundane stuff that you don't have a connection to your enthusiasm. Self-healing process. Be a food to God, and then everything will be okay with your human condition. Amazing. And it's all in this endophatic metaphor all the time, and again and again. Also, the beginning of the Amida prayer in Judaism is Hashem sfatai tiftach ufi agit hilatecha. The God, open my mouth and I will speak your praise. Like already hinting that there is a mutual process happening. Please take over the agency of me. I don't want to speak my own things. I want to speak your things, but I will speak your things about your tehillah, your greatness, in the best translation. Again, also in another passage, we see that the speech about
Yes? One question.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Rambam credited the prophets with strong, let's say, intellectual force.
Definitely, yeah.
Is this something that could connect with this vision you just developed? developed right now, in the sense that his ability to incorporate God's voice, but at the same time, not speaking for himself, but speaking for the community, in the sense that being at an interface with.
Yeah.
Could it
Being a,
could, could it
yeah.
could it be the source of Rambam praising so much the intellectual capacity of the prophets?
Definitely, yes, but we just do not know anything about any kind of mystical practices or mystical experiences by Rambam. He's totally
Mm.
absent with that, and every historian, every scholar of Rambam would just tell me, Arya, be careful what you are saying. You are trying to Kabbalize again Rambam. But
Yeah.
from myself, I would say really very much. When I read Moreh Nevuchim, I just hardly can imagine that someone can develop such a full-fledged, uh, amazing thoughts without just actually experiencing that. So if he was a Kabbalist, he was an extremely tricky Kabbalist and a super true Kabbalist because he hidden any traces of this. But for all people like Rav Abulafia and others, yeah, of course, it was obvious. Such a great mind, he has to be a prophet. So this application also to the statement about the Rambam is that from Moshe to Moshe there was no any other Moshe like the Moshe. This statement. It's also written something like in similar vein on his grave in Tveria, where he was buried. It's just about the idea that we know that he was a philosopher, but of course we apply the grandeur of the greatest prophet to him, which
Yeah.
is Moshe Rabbeinu, the Moshe that brought us the Torah from Sinai as a
Yeah.
yes, of course. It has to be of a very much, and I would believe a little bit trying to put things into a hypothesis already that I don't have easy corroboration with any kind of evidence that the practices of the ancient prophets and practices of the Rav Abulafia, of the self-proclaimed prophet, but for me, it looks like again as a prophecy. And having also in mind our knowledge about ethnology of religions from the ethnographic field, and this assumption that what is in the indigenous tribes happening is also was most probably was happening in the past. So throughout our evolution as a species, you have to be intellectually very much over the average of the society in order to be a shaman. Shaman is not a crazy person. He's the one who can deal with the craziness of states of mind that are acute, but he never loses his mind. He can be exposed to extremities, but he will get out of the session of the trance of the or the process of receiving of the Torah. If we are saying that Moshe Rabbeinu was a shaman of the topmost shaman of the within the Hebraism, Judaism, that actually he is coming back from the interface with God safely. He's not losing his mind. He's not dying.
Yeah.
If we take it literally, 40 days and 40 nights without eating and sleeping, total deprivation, but constant being in a constant channeling of the Torah, well, that means something. Of course, it's a metaphor in many aspects, but if it's not, if there was a capability for human to really be in a state of conscious, constant trance for 40 days and 40 nights, well, that would say that we are really very much a deterioration. It's not evolution, it's devolution, comparing to that. But yeah, I try to address what you said. I think, yes, of course, the intellect must be of topmost skills to get there. And we read it also in Rav Abulafia. I don't see any unclarity if any kind of books of Rav Abulafia. He's very clear. He's very also doing coding of the text on several layers, as we saw. So he's using both gematria, both literal sense, and it also makes sense of what he's trying to convey in a way of making the reader to be activated. He's not
Yeah.
doing it for just for the beauty of the text. There
Yeah.
is some desideratum to go and do the same. He's trying to
Mhm.
pass the teaching into the action.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So maybe let's. I don't need a break so much. So Valerie, tell me if you want to have a little bit break. But
I just need a couple of minutes because I need to have something hot because I'm in the middle of a car. And if
oh
you
no,
don't
I'm
mind,
sorry.
I would take
I
two or
yeah.
just 2 or 3 minutes
It's okay. It's
to
okay.
change to change my tea.
Yes. Let's meet at 10 after 7. Yeah. I will also
Okay,
do
good.
it. All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Yeah. All right. So coming back to what we where we are at, I just want to analyze how many. Yeah, we don't have a lot of slides, but therefore I would like to deepen deepen
Mhm,
this idea. Uh, we are having this. Let's make a summary. What Abulafia system of
mhm,
healing, Abu Alafia, the father of health, what he wants to heal. When we are into society, we are already divided. It puts us into the roles, yes. And usually, as a children, as a teenagers, and as a early adults, we are very energetic because this is just the path.
In einer Online-Lektion. Ich wollte mich nur mal melden, weil du das geschickt hattest, da über Bach. Ja. Ja, das ist ganz amüsant. Ich sehe ja überhaupt keine Podcasts. Ich kann das irgendwie da nicht. Du, dann störe ich dich jetzt nicht. Ja, ich rufe dich später an, wenn das zu Ende ist, okay?
Marlis, I will put you on. Yeah, all right, okay. I don't have to put you on mute. All right. I thought that this is a comment here. Yeah. So I believe in a process of being in society, we always end up in some sort of moment that we are frustrated. What is going on here? And it doesn't matter what is the culture, and we have this inherent as a human beings longing for unity. We have probably this imprint. I like to think that this is an imprint, or there are many theories saying where from is this feeling that we actually have to come back to some source, to the unified state, that we are constantly feeling that we can be more cozy, less cozy, feeling more elated, more feeling happy. There can be love, there can be ecstatic love, there can be really a very nice feeling. But we have a feeling that all of those are ephemerides, and sometimes there is just something in between, and sometimes a lot of pain also can happen. But I believe that there is this, and in the philosophy, of course, and in folk of the mankind, there is a plenty of this similar way of thinking, that there is this somewhere there a unity, a unifying factor that will just make all things unified, and it will be the perfect state. And I think there is such a imprint, and of course I am trying to see this imprint inside the system of Rabbi Abulafia here, but I try to see it also in many other systems of thoughts. If I don't see it for a long time after studying, I start to suspect that in this specific system it's absent. Well, there are those who are not trying to unify; they are trying to make chaos. So I would call it an evil. That's something that don't want to participate. But good is always something that tries to make holistic, tries to really bring back things in togetherness. So Abu Alafia, the father of health, it's something that obliges. And I think Abu Alafia really made a meaning out of his surname, of his family name, by bringing it to this technique, to summarize, that one gets into the acute state of the dialogue that is externalized with the vision that is mirror vision of the self. And in this acute state, there is everything is at stake. There can be total losing of everything and total winning. Winning is that after those states, there is really rehealing, coming back to the unity. And by repeating those experiences, one can build up this constant or semi-constant within the being still alive human being uh, state of mind that is giving, not only by the recollection of this ecstatic state, but only also by this stable reminiscence that is always present, like a little bit like musically metaphorizing it like a resonance. I don't know, Valerie, how about you, but I am just also an avid amateur musician, and I love really resonance and reverbs type of music. Not very strict, like there is a sharp sound, but when I play piano, I, for example, play amateur piano by putting the pedal of reverb on all the time. I make this a little bit wavery, you know, there is overflow of the of the sounds. And the same, I think, using metaphor as a metaphor, the same is probably the goal within Rabbi Abulafia, building up the systematic health of a holistic mind that has a reminiscence of the ecstatic experience, that we cannot live permanently in the ecstatic experience. Shaman also cannot stay all the time in the trance, in the cognitive trance, because it's energetically very much exhaustive to the body. But it can be repeated. And after repetition, there is this resonance, there is this reverb of the previous experience, and it builds up better and better health structures. On the ontological level, well, unfortunately, we also die. So the question is here how to actually deal with the weaknesses of the body, gradual, some sort of dementia, losing of the capabilities that we had in the youth, and also to do the passage in the most qualitative way. The passage, I call the so-called death the passage. What does it mean to be also holistically healthy at this moment? If after this crucial moment there is no more breath, there is no more heartbeat, there is no more brain activity. So what does it mean? I just believe that Rafa Abulafia system, like many other systems that are very precise and acute and towards the holistic and the health, they just try to build up this whole preparation, what is called in the mystical literature. I don't remember which mystic, maybe you remember. If someone didn't die during the life, he will not be ready to live after death. So experiencing this just to be self-immortalizing mind, preparing for how to be immortal and not dependent on the stage if I am in the body or out of the body, whatever that means. Of course, there is a big unknown after that. But I like to think that this is the system that it also brings this, because there is a lot of goodness about the Abulafia system. So this acute state, as we already remember, also is being also described in also another way in the Sefer HaCheshek, in the system of the name 72, where I believe that anchoring the whole process of self-induced cognitive trance in this way, anchoring it into the system of the names of the God, is giving exactly is this kind of security, the safety element. I believe that exactly this evocating this division of the self, both visual and both auditory and both also vocally, it is exactly safe because of the anchoring to the tradition that is so strong. That the name of God, the reverence of about and towards it, makes it all not to dissolve into some uncontrolled state of visionary, perplexing, overwhelming states of mind. And the similar things we find in shamanic systems. And again, for me, the great puzzlement is what those systems of possessive possessive trances are offering in the long term. I mean, for such a practitioner. I also read a lot about confusion and what can happen actually when someone is practicing some things and then actually ends up in the psychiatric ward because there is no control, there is no mind. And not to even mention the people who are abusing the, I would say, not psychedelics, not entheogens, but rather in this case, hallucinogens. Well, yeah, this is exactly if you tamper with brain with as a hardware and with mind as a software, be aware that there can be consequences to that. You know, there can be there can be control, better control, and also possibility to get deeper and deeper into acute states, or higher and higher in the acute states that will eventually bring the health. But also it can lead, if there is no some sort of safety aspect anchoring, there can be also losing the objectivity. Not that there is a split to two, there can be none. And I don't know how to call this state, but probably neuropsychiatrists, they can, because they are experiencing those things with the patients, unfortunately. This is also taken from this review that we had, a review of the book by Moshe Idel and Shahar Arzi.
Yeah, we got it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually, it's also again a hint that we are talking about spectral situations here.
Yeah.
So they even call it the first one autoscopic. They are very safe, because it can be autoscopy without the shifting of agency. By the way, I don't know if you are, Valerie and Melissa, you are aware of this, that according to Shahar Arzi, this neuropsychiatrist from from Israel, average of 10% of the all mankind population is having at least once in a lifetime spontaneous autoscopic or HEAUTOSCOPIc experience of a very brief moment. But it can happen like in a mirror, or we have a feeling that outside of the on the street there is, for example, our self, like doppelganger as we say it, the exact image of ourselves.
Yeah, I had once at the age of 14.
Really?
I had I can't remember. I have all my life remembered that instant. It was 3-4 seconds only, and
Can you describe more?
I still remember the place and the time it occurred. It was I just was walking home not the night, it was before dinner.
Mm-hmm.
I was walking along the street, and before entering the where my building was, the building of my house was, I just felt. I don't know. Feeling is not a word that describes all. It's much more. It's mental, more mental than feeling. I felt myself 3 or 4 meters above me, and feeling the absolute duality of what was happening at the time. And I was my body, I was my mind in my body, but there was another mind who was able to also feel my body 3 or 4 meters above me. And it was interrupted. I was very scary when it happened. I was very, very scary. But the truth is that I could not find a reason to consult anybody because my level of awareness was so pure that I couldn't consider ever that I had some mental disturb or anything. No, not at all. I mean, it was of course, I was a little scared because it was the first time, but I couldn't find a reason to say I need help. I need to tell somebody. No, not at all. Not at all. And also, it happened to me a few years ago, another experience through intense reading about phenomenology and some relaxation exercises I was doing, where I also had a similar experience, but this time was not auto-induced because it came spontaneously, but it had to do with the type of mental and physical exercise I was doing at the time. Helping me to manage stress, etc. But it was very disciplined. But no, just to say that these experiences are not far from my awareness. I mean, I think that most people may have them, and I easily admit the presence of these possibilities. Very, very, very. I'm very aware of that. So.
Thank you so much for sharing it. It's just this aspect of what you said also, that this is scaring, and it can be just out of the blue, spontaneous, but also can be triggered a little bit by some techniques. Yeah, I can relate to that. Yeah. Yes.
Yes, is reported by people who are near the death. By example, by accident, and they are nearly death, and the doctors work about them and say it's exactly what you told. The body is on the street, and the mind is above the street.
Yeah.
But I never experienced such moments myself.
No, everything is ahead of you, Marlies. And because we are wishing a nice holistic reconfigurations towards the higher level of health. Actually, I can honestly wish you that. But Valerie, thank you so much for sharing that. But I wanted to ask you, how did you recuperate? Did you need some time to that? Because you have avid memory of this
Yeah,
experience.
I could make a photograph, if possible, of that moment right now. I mean, it happened when I was more than 45 years ago,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
I have a very clear remembrance of that. Everything. It just lasted a few seconds. It was so intense, and there was no phenomena around me that was putting my life in danger or no. It happened at one. The way I would explain it is kind of a result of a personal concentration, maybe having to do with this double dialogue with yourself that as long as you mature as a teenager, you stabilize the presence of this you and yourself, right? At the end of the
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
It was an intensity that happened this way, but certainly when it finished, I had the doubt of if I had something non-regular, something non-healthy. But it was impossible for me to say that my awareness had diminished in some quality. On the
Mhm.
contrary, I was much more aware. I felt very lonely in the sense that I felt that my experience was very individual, and but I never dismissed it. I mean, I have always kept this in mind as a very unique moment. That some aspects of it I could reproduce them across life uh, with similar experiences, let's say.
I understand you. Yeah, I hear you. It is definitely also enrichment, I would say. And well, okay, if the sharing here is not about some sort of therapeutical, it's just for the giving a phenomenology
Yeah, absolutely.
instances to end-depthen to our dialogue. And honestly, also, Marlis, to what your comment, of course, near-death experiences, it's also the triggering point because it's something that is exposing us to great stress, and it's repeatedly being reported by people performing extreme sports or hitting something extreme, unexpected, or having an accident that they survive. That those kind of additional voices and additional presence of another being is being reported. But what you said, Valerie, is exactly the combination of this. Even if we categorize it right now, after those more than 40 years, the ascensional ecstasy and autoscopic. That you were aware that there are two of you, and I also strongly recommend this book by Oliver Sacks. All of the patients who are not prepared, they are terrified, they are scared to death, and the death is there because they are definitely convinced that they will die because there is a split, and it lasts also a couple of seconds, but it has a tremendous impact on them. And many of them, the patients, when they recuperated, but just spontaneously because they never had any kind of episode like this before and after, but they wanted to consult. They said it was eventually an enrichment because of something very unique, but they wanted to consult it. I uh, I'm happy that you developed from also this experience as a teenager to not to panic and not to get into something that you would feel that something is wrong. But on the other hand, I am compassionate with your loneliness that you couldn't share it with at that time. You didn't have the operational models and you know. Yeah, but this is like this. This is happening like this in our lives, and not always we have experiences to which we are ready to receive in full operational context when they happen, but we can actually self-reflect to them later. And actually, this is exactly what also Corinne Sombrund spoke to us after these training sessions of auto-induction cognitive trance. When we finished, it was 5 days, and I finished on Friday, and she said, and the group that was trained by them of teachers of this and co-practitioners with us, they said things might happen right now very dynamically in your so-called normal life. So if you are married, don't get divorced. If you are having children, don't run away, don't change your job rapidly, because it's actually something that you started to do something. You started to touch the infra levels. And she also said there are things that you just that's why she also recommended, and I'm having digressive proposal to you, Valerie, but just it will take me 2 minutes to say full picture. During those sessions, Corinne was saying a lot about the necessity to use the externalizator, so to speak, of what was there in the any kind of experience. What is this externalizator? She said, go and start writing whatever language, whatever alphabet, just let it be a little bit automatic. Go and take a crayon and find a child and just let you write, let you draw. Go and record the sound. Write down the diary what was there. Don't touch it for a long time. Try to touch it after 3 months. Go back after half a year and see what is actually each time the interpretation of it. I must tell you that that's why I'm saying maybe when you mentioned that you have a photographic even of that, maybe it would be for some reason only known to you, probably because it's your intimate experience, but you really trusted to hear that to share it. But on the other hand, it's also in a way related to what we were all talking about in those 8 sessions. Maybe it would be recommendable if you had this recollection of this photographic situation to do it as an externalizer to yourself in order to find more. And the beauty of those cognitive trances is that it's always yet another level with the passing time. They are extremely intensive experiences, but we are the only one who have keys to that. But in order to facilitate the finding the meaning of the key is to actually externalize it. And here we come with another topic: why the art? Why people are actually doing the artifacts of culture, which are architecture, music, singing, any kind of drawings, any kind of other artifacts. We are doing this projecting because what is happening inside. And
Yeah. Mhm. It's
yeah, just
yeah.
yeah.
You said before that you are fond of mountain. You go to the mountain and climb.
Yes.
And with nature, it's also happened to me similar experiences, and mostly after that the phenomena I described before. I was practicing. My sport was at the time speleology, and
Really?
I would descend on caves that were authentic cathedrals. Like a cathedral within nature, but full of small passages where you could almost just pass your body. And in order not to get crazy there, you had to in some way get out of your body and put your body, be ordered by yourself, but from an ego that was not exactly your body, because you needed to quiet your nerves, and then impulse yourselves through the small place to go through this once, and to come back as well, and not lose your nerves. And it was a relationship with nature that had not to do with language. It was kind of something previous to language. I was looking at the places, at nature and everything, trying to describe and use any concept, but I was unable to do so. And my communication with rocks, mountains, valleys, and physical objects was quite immediate. To a point where I thought that if I did become a person such insensitive, in the sense that those were not human beings, were not animals, not biological entities, just pure nature, mineral nature, right? And I thought to myself, how can I be so excited about this communication with mineral? Within a cave, you have water, you have small lakes, have small floods of water, very pure, very, environments that are absolutely pure. And it's like if nature in the most mineral state was something alive. And certainly, if at the time I could have still in my mind some religiosity, it had to do with that. It had to do with that.
Definitely. I resonate to what you say. I am very much impressed about the spiritual experience. I never had such a in a deep sense. I did explore a couple of very easy caves myself, but I can relate to what you say, especially about the feeling of connection to the nature and seeing it beyond the language. That there was exactly this. I was a thin boy back then, and there was this passage that bigger boys couldn't go through, and the only way to go through was that our head went through, but the chest. So I had a little bit more developed chest than the thinnest of us, and I had to do it on the lack of breath. I had to breathe out and then go through. And I was at the moment in the middle. I knew that if I have to resist the feeling that I have to breathe in, because otherwise I would get stuck and it will be painful and I will panic. So I understood that I have to go through. It was only 1 meter, and in this moment, on a lack of breath, on a breathing out, and it has to be disciplined movement, like a couple of seconds, but 5 to 6 seconds, not just 1 second. Otherwise, it will not happen. And then in this feeling, I felt this connection with the earth because I was exactly fitting into this hole, and I felt the burden of the nature, of the age of the nature. I felt the ancient aspect of the nature, that this is so old. This is not just this planet, but just all the matter is there, and the, me being unable by a couple of seconds to breathe made it just possible for connection, and my will was actually, I was still aware. My will was saying, you have to go through because you are a human being. You cannot stay here. You are not a rock. But for a moment, I was a rock. I am very much impressed that you have such experiences. As I said, I'd like to climb more, but this is not the path I chosen. So there are other experiences. Um, what I want to relate at the end, maybe this is again, we can look at those things that we spoke earlier, the structures within Rav Abulafia, but I just want to briefly, because I want to jump to Corinne Brew material. Here we can look, having in mind that we can assume that we are having HEAUTOSCOPY, gematria, and endophasia, all those methodologies and also effects intertwined. We can see that a mirror, like for example, Hashem is being called Hashem, but this is the mirror towards Moshe. And there is this Metatron, and also the bearer of the name, the name itself, and the Metatron is the bearer of the name as a Yahuel. So there is this constant dialogue also within the hypothesized mind of God. He is also having a constant dialogue, constant endophasia, and constant HEAUTOSCOPY. And within that, there are just phenomena happening. And what I find as a beauty is, just going back to the textology, in a book, such a small booklet like Sefer Haut, you all found those traces. And at some point, I was actually also said, I remember Thomas Shikora and also other people who said, maybe you are finding too much things there because you are immersed that, you are spending 1 year already in the small book, and you are start to seeing things what you want. I said, yes, of course, I am self-aware that it can be, but at some point I gave a lot of very good arguments. Well, I assume rather that this is coded there, and it's coded there because it's there, because this is also what Rabbi Abulafia was seeing as a as a process of very human, very deep process of inner speech and a possibility of being unified with the highest self by first making it happen that there is a split. Because only through the drama of probably, I'm also trying to understand it. I'm now hypothesizing. By getting to the drama of potentiality of losing everything, you can only appreciate the unity that is higher. It's like some sort of as they say in a classical French religious studies of religions, rite de passage. You know, the rites of the transition, the initiations. You have to pass through initiations in order to emerge into a better self. And only the true initiations that you can die mentally or really can give you this kind of sense of, okay, I really succeeded. The initiations cannot be too easy. It cannot be also too hard because otherwise no one will pass it, but it has to be hard enough to be selective, to be really doing something with that. So I think that the whole technique of Rav Abulafia is actually leading towards this initiation that is putting everything at stake, the whole mental health, in order to, if assuming success after this kind of acute climatic experience, the health is being enriched and health is being actually restored or being uplifted to yet another level. But this is an ongoing process. We're talking from the perspective of mortality, and each time when we are assuming that there is several chains of incarnations, but we never know actually if it's just a theory. And for each of us, the initiation called death is always an enigma. For each of us, it's different. It's intimate, and it's something that we all know only that shouldn't be approached with a terrified, non-prepared mind. It's better to also avoid any kind of pains and distractions in order to pass the passage in safety. And by the way, I mentioned about her so many times. Just by the way, I want to start from Orebur a bit, as we say. That actually one of the things that Corinne is trying to do is to give the application of the technique that she extracted from her own initiation to develop this auto-induced cognitive trance to the palliative patients, the people who are facing the imminent death, but also are afraid of fear. They are afraid of the pain, or the pain is blocking their capabilities to be really aware of what is happening, and to pass
Hallo?
in.
Ich bin gerade bei einer Online-Lektion.
Okay, I'm sorry, Marlies, I just muted it a little bit. Okay, so just why I'm bringing Corinne, because first of all, this is the experience I had. I was searching for such a stuff, and first of all, not searching for yet another touristic, let's say, experience in the potentialities of the so-called offer of the spirituality teachers. No, it was a little bit more about having something denominational, serious, and also something that can be reapplied to understanding of what is um, interesting to me personally or scholarly also. So why I feel that this is really very important technique and very important methodology that she's proposing, because it can be reapplied and give you a better understanding of Abulafian techniques. So in her case, um, she and I'm not saying anything that is intimate because it's also expressed in this movie. So Valerie, as far as I know, this movie is on Marlis. This movie is in two languages, in German and in French. But I think maybe at some point they will do the also English subtitles. The movie is pretty good. Uh, the beauty is that the main actress that was showing the path of Corinne was actually introduced by Corinne, and she was taught this auto-induced cognitive trance. And we also, during the movie, we also have artifacts recorded by Corinne herself, because the whole beauty of it is that Corinne went to Mongolia just as a she was she was she was doing the projects for BBC World Service as a audio person responsible for audio level for the movies, and she just happened spontaneously to have induced the trance because she was just recording some session by the shaman. And there is a little bit of humor, but also drama, because the shaman was angry at the guide who brought her. Said, "Who are you bringing me here? You are bringing me another shaman. You know how dangerous it is to have two shamans on the session. It can kill me, kill her. We can all die." And Corin was making very strange sounds there, and those sounds are actually incorporated into the movie. They are real recordings of the real sounds of her trance being incorporated in the
Amazing.
movie, and also the main actress was trained into that.
Amazing.
It is, yeah, it is a story, but what is important here, Corin didn't just become a shaman in Mongolia. She was working with the audio. Uh, she's an expert in the no, audio techniques. She started to actually build up the methodology, what actually is triggering whatever it is, this auto-induced cognitive trance. So the drum of the shaman, according to her assessment, is responsible for, let's say, inducing this states for the average 20% of the human population. It's her assumption. There is no scientific proof for that, but she's saying that there are more people who are susceptible to that, and people who are totally cannot be affected by this. But she started to develop the sound wave, and the sound wave is something that she'd never publish. I think this is her main asset. It's also about the responsibility. She cannot make it public because this can have consequences in the society. It has to be applied in the experimental or very close sessions. But what is good here is that she never wanted to build some sort of a cult around it. She contacted the scientists, and she's working on it in France. As far as I know, also some group inherited from her some, um, let's say, in a chain of not initiation, but just sharing and making this a little bit more impactful. In Liège, in Belgium, and also she's cooperating in Paris with people that are under this trans science org. So there are also professors of neuropsychiatry that are helping to, let's say, operationalize the whole topic. I advise to actually take a note and seek a little bit contact with her group also, because this is a serious so rarely in a some call of advices about any kind of practices. If someone is first of all, I am Jewish. I don't want to practice anything that has a little bit hint of anything foreign. I just know the consequences of what does it mean to be mixing things up, among other restraints. The thing is here that if you are talking about science, it's perfectly fine, because it's just showing me yet another aspect of the of the potential with the human that I can reapply to what are my goals and my responsibilities, my path, also what I can offer to the world, what I can offer to myself, and also to the world, as I said. So it's very, in this aspect, is very safe, because the motivation behind practice of Corinne is health. It's a human, simple health, a holistic health. Yeah. And what is a beautiful thing about that? Such as sessions, whatever she is organizing, however she is organizing, in a laboratory or not, in different contexts, it stays. It's just not learning to be dependent on any kind of sound wave or any kind of things. It's very similar actually to any kind of psychedelics, I would say, or meditative states, but it's extremely pure. It's like a scalpel. If I would say that psychedelics or any kind of other way around induced cognitive trances are like a blunt sword or a little bit not very rectified tool, what she actually developed, imagine that there is a sound wave and people are reacting to that by the sound wave. But she's saying it's not sound wave. Sound wave is a trigger. You have to look for the keys, what actually you can find, because it's inherent in every one of us. We just are blocked to the keys. And what is this training about is to be independent from this sound wave. It's to be actually doing it by yourself whenever you can, even in the crowded space. You can perform according to this proposal of understanding how the brain as a hardware and how the mind on the hardware works. That you can do the micro trances. The scaling of the trance can be done. The deep trance, of course, needs a special environment. That there is a space for that, and there is a safety feeling. But the micro trances can appear, can be induced for the trained person according to the will. And it's again something very attractive for me to understand Rabbi Abulafia, because exactly what we are speaking about is we also have the scaling of the techniques. I honestly said that I am not into or Hasechel or Hayei Haolam Haba as a full-fledged technique, because I don't perceive myself as a Kabbalist, and also my life is not into that, and it would require very much honesty to change my life into practicing it. And I'm also not saying anything against those who are actually doing those things, and I congratulate them that they can integrate. But I know the scaling. I know how much it, from the experiential also point of view, how much it is actually real, because the scaled down a little bit practices, what I mentioned, also simpler ones that I can do myself. They are working. They are doing things. They are actually having some phenomenon, bulk of phenomena that are affecting me and actually building up the process of self-awareness about what is going on inside. And they also have consequences. This feeling of being on the verge is I can definitely say about Rav Abulafias, even those minor techniques or simpler techniques, that they have to be also practiced with reverence. I think it's like tampering with the mind is always have to be practiced with reverence. So it's not a party situation of random ad hoc mixture of youngsters, mixing up different substances and then being totally puzzled that they feel bad after that. Well, it's a hygiene. You have to apply the hygiene to the mind processes. So yeah, I just recommend more exploration on Corinne. I think we are approaching to the time to. We'll stay in touch, Valerie. But let's. If you have any comments right now or any of your further observation, I would like to thank you. Also to you, Mardis and Francesco and others who are participating, because this is a very nice path. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the impact I have received, it will be long lasting, in the sense that well, I'm not saying that we have visited something on the verge, but but in the sense that I could reunite different levels of personal experience in my personal path, going from cognitive reading, studying philosophy, or my preference for a certain type of philosophers, or in the sense that to me, personally, to me, philosophy has been a kind of self-cure, self-care in every sense, not just philosophy, anything cognitive that I could have the opportunity to get at school was for me kind of, uh, a self-governing and self-regulating path. This is obviously, and but obviously, it distanced me from religion, from myth, from poetry, from literature, for a long time, and in a way, now I am recovering experiences from across my life, who become significant and signifiers again to me, to use the linguistic division, and they are self-loathing of new kind of fields of experience, let's say so, right? And Kabbalah for me was a kind of a mystery. It took me a while to interpret what's in behind, and of course, I recognize that I made a cognitive approach to that from the very beginning, and it still will be for sure in the future, because I'm not a religious person. I'm not a religious practitioner. I have been educated as a Catholic, no? But the capabilities for my environment to teach me to pray and to claim my internal speech wording, it was not enough. I was quite disconnected from incorporating this heritage into my dialogue with myself. So I have to reconstruct it because of many personal and family reasons, etc. But I think the most important thing for me, the experience you transmitted us, is this capacity to reunite aspects that are coming from different fields: cognitive, physical, in the sense of body understanding, incorporating language, incorporating this say how your body connects previous to language with your environment, right? That's it. And there's the field of potential knowledge, potential experience, and of course we all long for unity. We all long for unity, and phenomenologists have been for me a source of experience in terms of approaching more and more in circles to different types of noematic and analysis of approaches, conceptual approaches. But I think this Kabbalah is an open field, a very nice open field, and I'm sure that I will continue to get more and more of it.
It would be great, that we could meet, and thank you so much for this elaborated statement. I totally sympathize with this, and also feel the empathy to this, and also feel the resonance to this. So thank you so much. It's very meaningful for me. Again, you hinted at something that I just forgot to mention, but also in what Corinne is proposing, Corinne Sambrun, is she's saying delve into the realm of proto-language, and you are already 3 times you were saying today that this experience before language, if it's even possible to convey it back and explain to go back and descend in the level of language from the upper in the metaphor of vertical metaphor, the upper experience that is beyond or prior to language or before language. She is speaking about this proto-language. And it was actually interesting because, experiencing proto-language going out authentically, it's not some sort of glossolalia that is being just performed like in a theatrical way in some denominations, as far as I can imagine. But it's something authentically stemming from the state that you cannot speak in any other way. And this is the proto-language. It's not speech, but it's proto-language. It just resonates to Rabbi Abulafia idea to deconstruct the language, to destroy it, but not for the sake of destruction, just start from the atomized language of those vowels of repetitive sounds, and then see what happens, and just try to reintegrate. So this is exactly the paraphrase of what you said, I feel it.
Yeah.
And everyone has his own personal path, but if we can have an enrichment like this,
exactly.
I just want to thank you so much from the depth of my heart, because it's really very important.
Yeah, as I said, you may feel a little bit lonely because you think your experiences are so separated from the rest of the world, but there's a way to go back and to rename them. And you gave me a lot of potential tools to review and give those a name, and writing something about those without thinking that this is an isolated experience. I mean, it's very the opening for new experience is very beautiful. Thank you so very much, Ari.
Thank you so much, Valerie. I also thank you, and thank you also to all those in the background. Thank you, Marlis.
Yeah. Okay. So
yeah, we all have recordings also, Marlis. For all those that you didn't participate, you have them, and we can reintegrate them.
yes.
We are all grateful, and thank you. As I said, going back to the logistics. I think Zev is also having nice talks with me. We'll think about the next stages, but you know what I want to, I can give you the idea. As I said, I am in the project of writing a huge commentary on serpent as a symbol of life, so to speak, based on the Rav Yosef Gikatila, the student, ephemerical student of Rav Abulafia. There is this short treatise, Sot Hanachash Umishpato, the secret of the serpent and his law, that I translated and edited already in English. And now I'm doing the Polish version of the whole book, but not based on article. But why Polish? Because I have a publisher. So after that, couple of years will pass. I will translate it fully, but I can work with this material, and I have to work because I have already obligation. But I wanted to share those things, and they are actually not so much far away from what we spoke here. But there's a little bit different methodology, and if we have the sessions again, I think we can also have such a thing organized by the Barcelona study institute, Jewish Study Institute, and once it will be there, I also have contact with you, so I can just propose once we'll have it. If you don't, we'll get it. Yeah, but I must tell you is studying the life through the lens of the metaphor of the serpent, and it's not something new. I am in the topic, let's say, for many years. It's already 20 years more so, but it's maturing, and it's always good to anchor it on something. So I am anchoring on the book of Rav Gikatila, but from the detail, it again became a huge synthesis, and I try to really put myself in the frames because the topic is huge, and I want to pass something that is a value added, not to repeat things that are in the literature, but try to find a value added. So if you would be interested, it was one idea of continuity.
We look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, yeah. Thank you so much, Marius, also, and guys, thank you so much again and again. It was a privilege, and I am enriched too. So I wish that we stay in touch, and definitely I mean it. And I wish you for now a good evening, and let's be nourished by what we shared to each other. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.